Howdy friends and family, thanks so much for joining me. This is week 8, day 5 in the series I am doing with Christ Memorial Lutheran Church about knowing God. This week we are talking about how God sees and hears. We've talked about how he sees all that you do and loves you, and he hears everything you have to say even before you can think it, and he wants to hear from you. And today we are going to look at an example of that in the story of Hagar at the very beginning of it. This comes from Genesis 16, and we find Hagar. She is Sarai's servant, and Sarai had no children. She was barren. So she gave Hagar to her husband Abram to have a child in her place. And this was a very common practice at the time. And Hagar did become pregnant. And when she became pregnant, she started to despise Sarai, her mistress. And because of this, Sarai started to treat Hagar badly, so Hagar ran away. And that is where we find her when we come to our passage, which is verses 7 through 13, which say, "The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, 'Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going?' 'I'm running away from my mistress Sarai,' she answered. The angel of the Lord told her, 'Go back to your mistress and submit to her.' The angel added, 'I will so increase your descendants that they will be too numerous to count.' The angel of the Lord also said to her, 'You are now with child, and you will have a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man, and his hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he will live in hostility toward all his brothers.' She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. 'You are the God who sees me.' For she said, 'I have now seen the one who sees me.'" So first, we see that God saw the entire situation. God saw everything that Sarai, Abram, and Hagar did. And he knew that Hagar was not completely in the right in this situation. Hagar had despised Sarai. She probably wasn't treating Sarai the best either. And so he saw the entire situation, but he still loved her and promised to bless her. God saw the entire situation. That is why Hagar gave him the name El Roi, the God who sees. Now, if you remember, El is a reference to Elohim. Anytime you see that, it's often referencing Elohim, which is the name for God that is talking of his power, his might, and how he is God. He is God over all. And so the El in El Roi is in reference to Elohim, God. And the Roi means to see. So he is the God who sees. And this is the only name in the Bible who is given by a human to God. So, secondly, we see that God also heard her. God heard her cry. All Hagar actually says is, "I am running away from my mistress." But God hears the distress in her cry and that she is wanting to escape this situation, which is not a good one for her. And so God gives her this name for her son. He gives her the name Ishmael. And the very first part of Ishmael, the Ishma part, comes from the word Shama, which means to hear. And the second part is El, which is in reference to God again. So the God who hears. So God is a God who hears, and he is El Roi, the God who sees. God saw and heard it all. He saw every single detail in the situation, but he still loved her. He still promised to bless her and to do good to her. And he does not say yes to her request to leave the situation. He tells her to go back, but he blesses her through the situation. He blesses her family. You continue reading through Genesis, and we see that she is blessed by going back to Abram and Sarah, and he still blesses her family by increasing her descendants. So Hagar learned that he is the God who hears and he is the God who sees. So take confidence in knowing that he sees and hears you as well, just as he saw and heard Hagar. He is your El Roi. He is Ishmael, the God who sees and the God who hears. If you're memorizing Psalm 139 verses 1 through 4, this is your reminder to do that. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time.